It is a peculiar sensation, this double consciousness, this sense of always looking at one's self through the eyes of others, of measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on in amused contempt and pity. One ever feels his two-ness, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one body, whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. William E.B DuBois, from the book, The Souls of Black Folk. I'm Stephen Middleton, coming to you from the Possibility Action Network. Our core values include I am, I can, and I will. I am Possibility Man. Today, I want to share on the theme, managing stressful emotions. I care about human suffering. I care about the suffering that exists in some human beings around the world. I used to be one of those individuals who walked around burdened by the cares of life and having few tools to figure out why I was burdened and what to do about my burden. I've lived to be 68 years of age, have seen a lot of things in this life of ours, and I think that I've taken a peek into the subject of how do we manage stressful emotions. There are many teachers today, just today, who talk about this subject. Michael Singer, for example, has written many fine books on this subject of the human organism and how they are in the world. Eckhart Tolle has written a few amazing books on this subject. One of them was The Power of Now, which is still a popular book around the world. There's another teacher, lesser known, but of the same caliber. His adopted name is Muji, where he talks about these kinds of subjects as well. What each of these teachers point to is a higher consciousness, is something that's greater than the human being. In many ways, they join priests and teachers and rabbis and ministers from around the world who point to the same kind of thing, but in a different way. Muji, Tolle, and Singer don't talk about the afterlife, about going to heaven when you die, but they do talk about a higher being, a higher power. Here is what I have discovered. I have discovered that every human being actually has two selves. It's really one self, but there are two aspects of this self. We come to know one aspect of it, and it's possible during our lifetime we may get to know the other aspect of this self. So what I'm learning is that there is a conditioned self, and that is the one we all get to know. That's the one that comes into the world as a clean slate. That's the one we teach to recognize mommy and daddy. That's the one we teach to learn their ABCs. That's the one we send into the world in schools, into schools, churches, and synagogues, and mosques, and other spiritual communities. That's the one who learn about the environment that they are, or that they're in. That's the conditioned self. And that's the one, the conditioned self, who gets to learn fear, who gets to learn about anxiety. I'm anxious. That's the one who gets to learn about depression, about a depressive mood. That's the one who gets to know about anger and deceit and hatred. It's the conditioned self. The conditioned self, the conditioned part of who we are is all learned. And it varies from where we grow up, in the families we grew up in, and the genes that we have. That is genetics that we have, our DNA, all affect this conditioned one. This one who learns to say, I can't do that. This one who learns to say, I can't read and write well. That's the one who learned all of these things that holds an individual back, that tells an individual that they can't, that they should not. That's the one who makes distinctions between people. That's the one who says, that person is a Mexican. Oh, that person is a Jew. Oh, that person is Irish. That person is English. That person is black. That person is white. All of these kinds of things we learn, and is all put upon this conditioned self. What I'm discovering then, as I scan my life, all of the fears, all of the self-doubt, all of the feelings of unworthiness were all heaped upon this conditioned self. And the conditioned self, then, is not the primary in the experience of a human being, or for that matter, any being on the planet today. There is an unconditioned self. And the unconditioned self is your true self. It's who you are. It's the self that doesn't go about saying, I cannot. It's the self that doesn't go about saying, I don't like you because of, pick the characteristic. It's the self that's just aware, that silent awareness, that consciousness that always knows. That's the primary self. And I'm discovering that's who we are. That's who I am. The conditioned self knows the material world pretty well. It knows about fear. It knows about anxiety. It knows about depression. And it gets stuck because it learned those things from the material world. It knows about pain. It knows about pleasure. And all of these qualities now aren't bad. But those qualities in the material, the conditioned self that's destructive are the ones that hold us back, are the ones that lock us up in our cages. That's the one who says, I live a restricted life. And we rarely get to know the unconditioned self very well. But that's the opportunity that's available for all of us. It is the unconditioned self, the unconditioned you, where peace always lies. The unconditioned you is that place where hope always lies. It is that place where the peace that passeth all understanding is actually seated all the time. It is that place where you can hear the words, be still and know. It's the unconditioned self. It's that self that's unaffected by the world. And that aspect of you is present in your experience now. It is present in my experience now. And this is where you'll find ways to manage stressful emotions. Now, I introduced a passage from Dr. E.B DuBois in the opening of this share. Now, of course, Du Bois was writing in the early 20th century. Du Bois was looking at America. Du Bois was looking at two groups of individuals. I want to strip all of those things away now. And just say that Du Bois, if he was looking at the world now with almost 8 billion people on it, he probably would see that we're dealing with the consciousness of humanity, the consciousness of humans. And there is a double consciousness. There is a consciousness of the conditioned self, and there is a consciousness of that self which is unconditioned. So what does this have to do then with managing stressful emotions? I want to invite you to be curious about this unconditioned you. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking you to consider whether you believe that there is an unconditioned self or not, or whether you disbelieve that there's an unconditioned self or not. I'm simply inviting you to be curious about it. And to be curious about it in the most stressful times that you can actually imagine. Let's say that you're hit with the most severe feeling of insecurity, that you just feel that you just can't make it in the world. I'm asking you to take your focus off of the conditioned self, the one that's captured in this feeling of stress and anxiety and fear and self-doubt. I'm asking you merely to consider the possibility that there's another aspect of you. That aspect of you that is always knowing. It's the knower. It's the one who knows that you're feeling stressful right now. It's the one who knows that you're fearful right now. It's the one who knows that you're feeling a sense of depression right now. It's the one that knows all things. I'm simply inviting you to become curious about that aspect of you. You know, I'm going to write a reminder today. I'm going to type out a reminder with this question, and I'm going to put it on the door into my office so that I'll see it whenever I go into my office. I'm not going to plaster it all over the house. I'm just going to put this in one place, and I'm going to ask this question: who is the one that knows? Who is the knower? And I want to become enthralled by this knower. I want to become fascinated by this knower. I want to put my attention on this knower and see if my attention is on this unconditioned self. I want to know what happens to this conditioned sense of regret, this conditioned sense of self-doubt, this conditioned sense of fear. You know, I've said before that I come from a Christian background, and that's true. But I think the same applies to all faiths. In my background, in my sacred text, it says you cannot put new wine in old sheepskin. That is, the way I'm going to interpret this here is that both of these feelings, a sense of the conditioned self, the sense of whatever is holding you back, and then the sense of this unconditioned you to reside in the same vessel. What I am suggesting, and I want you to let me know what you find out about this, that as we put our attention on what I am calling that unconditioned self, that self that has been uncontaminated by the world, that self that will never die, that self that will witness even your last breath, let's see what happens to any feeling that may be holding us back. We may talk to you more about this. You know, I think it's worthwhile that those of us who are not teachers, you know, those of us who are not rabbis and ministers and preachers and reverends and all of these things, to kind of share together and see what our life experience unfolds regarding this. I'm Stephen Middleton, coming to you from the Possibility Action Network. Our core values include I am, I can, and I will. I am Possibility Man. Until next time, good day.